You guys, welcome to or welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little different. It's definitely going to be more podcasty. There's a lot of things I need to jump around to while I do this video. It's going to be a little bit different in terms of how I edit it, so be prepared for that. The topic I'm about to go over is extremely interesting, and for those who have followed my channel for a little while would kind of understand why it's interesting to me, being that transgenderism and gender dysphoria has been a pretty common topic that I've went over several times. Puberty blockers has been a huge topic of discussion in the United States and in Europe for the past, several years. And to see this story coming out of England, I thought was pretty damn interesting. So let's go ahead and pull up the video.
And let's just bring you a bit of breaking news, which may be of interest to some of you.
Some of us. One of the biggest topics in the world right now, but it might be interesting to some of us.
It's about puberty blockers. Now, these are drugs that are used to delay the changes of puberty in transgender youngsters.
I don't think it's fair to just say delay. In some cases, when you block puberty, it's done. There's no going back to puberty. At least a lot of the benefits that puberty brings to a person, but we'll go over that in just a minute.
In terms of how they are prescribed by the NHS, there has been a lot of controversy over the last few years about this. At the moment, they are only prescribed to children attending gender identity services as part of clinical research, and they are not routinely offered to children at gender identity clinics, but they are still offered. Well, the government, NHS...
Well, that's kind of weird to say it that way. It was offered pretty much everywhere, if anybody really wanted it, but now they're restricting it to research and research only.
England has just confirmed that children will no longer be prescribed puberty blockers at gender identity clinics. This is coming from NHS England. It just broke in the last few moments.
Now, with this report from Sky News, I would say most of this information is pretty good news. Most of it. Let's jump over to the article from Sky News themselves and see what more information we can get from this. Children to no longer be prescribed puberty blockers, NHS England confirms. The decision comes after an independent review of service for children under 18 and a sharp rise in referrals to the Gender Identity Development Service run by Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, which is closing at the end of March. Please excuse the ads. I am not using an ad blocker, and I am definitely not subscribing to Sky News. Children will no longer be prescribed puberty blockers at gender identity clinics, NHS England has confirmed. Puberty blockers, which pause the physical changes of puberty such as breast development or facial hair, will now only be available to children as part of clinical research trials, which blows my mind. That wasn't the case to begin with, but more on that in a little bit. The government said it welcomed the landmark decision, adding it would help ensure care is based on evidence and is in the best interest of the child. The review followed a sharp rise in referrals to the Gender Identity Development Service, a specialized service for young people who experience difficulties in the development of their gender identity, which is closing at the end of March following repeated scrutiny. Run by the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, GIDS had 5,000 more referrals in 2021 and 22 compared to just under 250 a decade earlier. I want you to think back on the years of 2021 and 2022. What was happening in the world during that time? Now, there are around 5,000 children that are on the wait list to be a part of this trial that's been going on, but currently right now there are fewer than 100 children that are on puberty blockers under this program. Now, I will admit I am glad they are limiting the use of puberty blockers, but unfortunately that 100 or so children are now going to have to undergo the remainder of their therapy is in the name of science in order to figure out the long-term effects of using puberty blockers, so I kind of understand, but I'm not exactly happy about it. Now, over here at REMI or REMI, whatever or however it's pronounced, Rethink Identity Medicine Ethics, we will go over a little bit here on what they already know about the use of puberty blockers. Puberty blockers to treat gender dysphoria in minors. Puberty blockers prevent the development of secondary sex characteristics, male features like facial hair and deep voices, and female features like breast development and menstruation. They also slow the growth of sexual organs and production of hormones. They were first used in the US in gender clinics in 2007 and came to be widely used to treat gender dysphoria by 2013, which hurts my head already knowing the negative side effects that come with using puberty blockers, and we'll get more into it in just a second. The use of puberty blockers in minors with gender dysphoria to postpone the development of secondary sex characteristics is an off-label use. There are no long-term studies regarding the medical, social, and psychological effects of their use in this population. Technically, puberty blockers may be discontinued and used only as pause in the development of secondary sex characteristics to allow the child more time to explore their gender identity without significant irreversible medical effects. However, as a practical matter, they are part of a single pathway to medical transition from the beginning of their use for this purpose. Nearly 100% of those who are put on them go on to use cross-sex hormones. Now, the more interesting part here is the effect of puberty blockers. Few studies have examined the effects of puberty blockers for the treatment of gender dysphoria and none of the long-term effects. The potential risks include adverse effects on bone mineralization and brain development. In addition, males who are given hormone blockers at the onset of puberty and continue on the cross-sex hormones will have a permanent micropenis with compromised sexual function, and because of the size of their penis, will be required to use a portion of their colon or peritoneal lining around their stomach in order to fashion a neovagina, instead of using the penis skin, which is how it is done in adults. Females who transition in their teens with puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones transition will be sterilized, will not have their eggs to bank, and will have a hysterectomy after 5 years of testosterone injections. When you prevent puberty, you can't just restart puberty at any point in time. I have seen countless tweets and arguments from a lot of these trans activists that state that you can just kickstart puberty again. Yeah, that's not how it works. You have a finite amount of time to undergo puberty. You don't get to just choose when it happens. Once you have a micropenis, you are stuck with having that micropenis. And once you sterilize a girl by removing her ability to develop eggs, and then you perform a hysterectomy on her, she's done. She can never have kids. And similarly, if that person were to undergo gender transition as an adult, they still have a high chance of having children if they decide to later on down the line. But once when a child has been put on puberty blockers, a lot of these effects, pretty much all of these effects, are irreversible. There is no going back. Listen, you guys, I know you all have heard the arguments. Children are not allowed to smoke. They're not allowed to drink. They're not allowed to vote. They're not allowed to sign up to go to war with other countries. They're not allowed to get a tattoo, and among other things. But for some reason, there is a giant group of people who think that children are capable of making a lifelong decision that will either permanently sterilize them or give them a micropenis. Keep in mind, this is an age group of kids that think Santa Claus is still very much real or had just found out that he is not. But again, there are people, parents, who think that their child is capable of making this kind of decision. I think you all by this point know where I stand on this issue, but I of course want to know what you guys think about this. So as always, please leave those comments down below. But before you go, don't forget to hit the like or the dislike button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you hopefully get notified every time I post a new video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.